for most of us, it's not easy to keep our mind in the state of loving kindness, compassion all the time. Especially when we see injustice be done, pain and sufferings. But if we train our mind to keep in that state all the time, it is possible. It is not impossible. Even though it might not be so easy. And for that, we have to meditate and practice. Not just one day, but continually for over the years. And for that, we need to be reminded of the importance of cultivating such attitude and keeping such attitude all the time. For that very reason, that is why we have come here together. So we can be reminded of that. So then we can at least try to apply, integrate even small part of it, and a little bit every day. And through all the virtues that we create by coming together and listening to the Dharma and reflecting, contemplating on them, become cause and conditions to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state, as soon as possible. So we can be most and greatest benefit to each and every sentient being. Okay, so then we can do the prayer. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the four destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect knowledge, and it would, in good conduct, Sukha, the knower of the world, supreme guide of human being to be tamed, teacher of God and human being, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya claim, I prostrate, make offering, go for it. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the Great Sangha, to all the ever devout homage, to all worthy of respect, bowing with the body as many as all realms, Adam in all aspects, with the Supreme faith pay homage. a star, a visual appearations, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew, or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See condition things as such. Through this merit, may sentient beings attain the rank of all saints, subdue the four force, and be delivered from the samsara's ocean, perturbed by the wave of passion, sickness, and death. 사시베기 조심해도 다레라네 인대예 반대 상계신도 이대오와 욕은 넘어다시 제발쇼 이담 그러나 만달라가니야타야. I go for it until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentients. Sangye chodang soge chodang ma changjo pado dane sangye chöche kibe sonam ge lola penje sangye doba sangye chodang soge chodang changjo pado sangye chöche kibe sonam lola penje sangye doba kanye doje nye sone nawa doje kame de tande shuni pe de kodam de la chang so. So from today, we will be starting a new short text on Lojong, So Lojong means, in Tibetan, Lo means mind, and Jong is like training, Also, it's a mind training. Sometimes it is translated mind transformations. Basically, there are many different text teachings on Lojong, the mind training. And here we are going to discuss one particular, based on one particular text by one of the, Katamba masters, Geshe Chekawa. His writing, what is known as 7 point of mind training, and is one of the most well-known text, and one of used as a basis for many other teachings and practice, by all the different lineage within the Tibetan Buddhism. And as well as, I think nowadays, even many other teachers from other traditions, not just the Tibetan Buddhist traditions, but from other Buddhist traditions who have also started to study and learn those Lojongs, those mind trainings, and also kind of teaching in their own students, And those Lojongs teachings are extremely powerful, in a way, very practical, as very practical, and also as simple in a way that is not as complicating as some of those philosophical texts, where it can be, it can be complicating and not as easy to understand, unless one go in the deep studies, whereas those lojongs, it is without a very without in a background of very extensive studies, and still anyone can kind of understand it, so in that way, it is simple, but also those are, also those teaching can also challenge our mind and our acoustic mind, our acoustic mind, which kind of, feel that we know what's right, what's wrong, feel like, we know what to do, what not to do, our acoustic mind. And the Lojong teachings can challenge those kind of acoustic, views, and and especially, the Lojongs, as we go, then you can see, see, but all these Lojongs, or the mind trainings teachings are a method, a practice, a method, a way to cultivate and generate, sense of gentleness, friendliness, openness, loving kindness, compassion towards others and oneself, as well as how to, once we have cultivated, how to maintain it, how to improve, increase, and as well as how to bring those attitude or the mind of loving kindness, compassion into our speech, into our actions, when we are encountering different situations, through our different stages of our life, and how to utilize, whatever circumstances, situations is presented in our life at different stages. Whatever, sometimes, we are presented with better situations, things seems going well, and sometimes we are presented with difficult situations, where we have a lot of challenges. And regardless, whatever different situations that we encounter or be presented in different time, in different state of mind, how can we utilize each of them, every situation, and direct that situation to develop and to increase that loving kindness, compassion even further? How can we transform those situations into something positive? How to transform them into the path? How to transform them in as a cause and conditions for our own enlightenment and others' enlightenments. So those are the, and I guess, especially now in the situations, when we see the news, with so much of suffering and pain that has been caused by the virus, and as well as due to certain policies or actions taken by different individuals, leaders, and others in dealing with that, and through that, again, different and affecting different days, on physical level, on emotional levels, and especially, now for a couple of days with this very unfortunate, I don't want to use the word murder, but very unfortunate killing of, or the death of a person, George, and because of that, so much anger and rage that is going, and unrest and violence that is going in these countries, So, and due to that, there is a lot of so much emotions that you can see, you can feel, that people are going through, And also it is, and if we don't kind of watch our mind, if we don't kind of take care of our mind, we can also easily get caught up in that kind of cycle of emotions, frustration and anger, and a lot of those unrest and violence have been, come from that kind of frustrations and anger and rages of what people have seen or feel as being injustice, that when they see that happening again and again, being repeated constantly without, and we can also get caught up in that emotion too, it is important to not to create that flame more, even we don't create externally, internally, that flame of rages and anger, especially not towards anyone, definitely, if we cannot deal across, it can be directed towards system itself, but not to anyone, not to any person, any sentient beings, first of all, it's better if we don't have any kind of those negative emotions, But somehow, due to many cause conditions, those emotions arises. Sometimes we have no control, For beginners who doesn't have a strong practice, we don't have strong practice, so therefore those emotions arises, and when it arises, we notice that, we recognize that we have that emotions, whether it's frustration, anger, rage, whatever, and then make sure that it is not directed to any individuals, any persons. Instead, we can, be angry with the system, and otherwise, a lot of other innocent people get involved, and they will suffer so much, I mean, we can understand the rage, the anger, that's boiling there because of such situations, similar situation that you see again and again happen, repeating again. But that should be directed toward the system, to change the system. And it shouldn't be turned towards certain individuals, especially, those innocent peoples whose house, shops are burned, and create more pain to many other families, and sometimes we do that because our mind is totally overwhelmed by that kind of rages and anger and frustrations, and in that moment, sometimes people cannot think properly, sometimes we are not aware of what we are doing. So I think, yeah, even myself, when I watch the news, don't watch a lot, but once in a while, a little bit, and when you read or you watch, yeah, in a subtle way, your mind started to, it kind of fuel your mind, emotion in a certain way, sometimes in a subtle way, you can you can feel the little bit of, frustration and anger, especially when you see the video of, being kneel and for 8-9 minutes, and the person asking for help, and just again is lack of compassion, it's due to lack of compassion, due to lack of compassion that took someone's life, and that led to all these rages, anger, and uprisings, unrest, is a result of, if someone was compassionate, if the police officer was compassionate enough, they could have done different actions and could have done differently, could have handled differently, in a little bit more compassionate way. And someone doesn't have to lose life. And due to that, all this now new violence and unrest. So anyway, I think again, I think I get kind of. So yeah, I'm saying, what I'm saying is it is so important to pay attention to our mind and our feelings. our emotions in relation to the present situation as well as other situations, in our life at different time. And not allow ourselves to get caught up in those unhealthy, negative state of mind or emotions, And the Lojongs, the Lojong. So in a way, of course, we kind of decided last year, what I'm going to be starting this year, and we decided to start this one. But with the present situations, of course, we didn't see this situation coming, with the COVID virus as well as these situations. But with this situation, with going through that, it just seems the right text, so relevant, and is relevant everyday life in all situation and all the time. But I think it becomes even more important and relevant and in such present circumstances, situation, and state. So, yeah, I think I might have seen one. There is one caution, so from Buddhist perspective, what is the right action, speech, and mind in regard to the white supremacy? And furthermore, will you speak on collective karma when a type of person is prosecuted because skin color and philosophical belief? I think it is well. I think as we go through this Lojong, probably you will begin to kind of find answer to that. How to respond emotionally, verbally, and physically in dealing with such with such or similar people and state of mind. Again, the main point is always coming back to your mind. It will come. While we have to stand up for such a, when people are mistreated, and not only people, animals, any sentient beings, that is when they have been mistreated due to their, due to whatever, due to skin or color, due to their religious, due to their philosophy, whatever that is, definitely we have to stand up and speak and trying to stop such kind of discriminating and painful act and attitude but the main point is that we need to do that with not out of anger and rages, but from more calm state of mind, more peaceful state of mind, if possible, from the state of loving kindness and compassion. Even for those people, who, and probably they need more compassion than anyone else because they are really mentally sick, mentally sick, to have that kind of, delusion, that thinking that you are much more supreme because of your certain color of your skin, or feeling you are more supreme because on the base of your religion's philosophy, or you are feeling supreme due to based on your status, your economic status, or feeling due to a very supreme due to your background, education, and so forth, and thereby kind of treating others very badly, mistreating badly, So, they're object of not anger, but they're more object or even more stronger compassion. So as long as our mind, as long as our mind is more calm, peaceful, even if it's not coming from total love and compassion at the very beginning, but the important is try to keep our mind more peaceful and calm. And from that state of calm, peaceful, and openness, then we have to speak, and we have to take actions to change such behavior and such attitude and such and a system that is built on such kind of attitude. Any system that is built on such kind of attitude should be changed, and we should take any actions to make that change happen. And sometimes change doesn't happen overnight immediately. It takes times, but there should be pressure all the time until change starts happening. There should be continuity to discuss, to talk on all this, inequality and discrimination and all of that. It will needs long-term, discussions and actions and continuity. Yeah, collective karma, I think we all have similar collective karma. We all have similar collective karma, Why the karmic seed is there, but it also depends on the immediate cause and conditions, So as I mentioned before, so immediate cause and condition can be stopped, can be changed. And if we change the immediate cause and conditions, then even with the karmic seed, we don't have to experience it, we all have that, in certain places, white skins are the victim of a particular country or society. In certain countries, certain place, if you are more dark, black or orange, you become the object of discrimination and mistreat. And in some, so it changes from country to country, place to place, and same in a different in terms of different religions or philosophy. In some countries, certain religions are the victims collectively, and in some other countries, it is the other way around. And so we all seems to have the potential to experience that collective karma everywhere, but it depends on the immediate cause and conditions. And so I think we have to kind of remember and being aware of that, and not to forget. Just because we have certain collective karma or individual karma, that doesn't mean we have to experience it. Because if we can change the immediate cause and conditions, and that karmic potential can be changed, or at least not aggravated. So yeah. So then. So if you go to the in the text, and it starts with homage to the great compassions, so that is paying homage, and from that what we know is this topic, the subject of this text, even though it's very short, is going to be the main is going to be a Mahayana teachings. This is going to be Mahayana teaching based on loving kindness, compassion. So again, here the homage paid to the compassion, just as Dharmakirti in his supplication to the middle way, he also paid homage to the compassions. Like in most of the other texts, they pay homage to the Buddha or the Bodhisattvas or their individual deities or the gurus. And here the homage pays to the compassion, and as Chandra Dharmakirti said, the reason why he paid homage to the compassion is because the compassion is so important at the very beginning, in the middle, and at the end, in terms of experiencing the excellent fruit of the virtues, and so it means in terms of as he said, compassion at the very beginning is like a seed, it's like a seed that produce the excellent virtues, result, consequences, or experience. In the middle is like the water and fertilizers that allow that seed to ripening, that virtue seed to ripening, or that makes that So it is the compassion, like a seed that lead into the Mahayana practice, and awaken our Mahayana lineage, within our heart and into the path, lead to the path. And then while on the path, as we progress in the Bodhisattva's path, it is the compassion that keep someone on the path, continue to practice the Bodhisattva path through the practice of such as six perfection and so forth. Is that compassion that keeps someone on the path without giving up and without kind of reversing it and without declining from those, and to allow us to move forward further in our path, through those different practices on the path, on the 5 path and 10 bhumis. And at the end, it is like a fruit, you experience, at the end, you experience the fruit of that seed once it has fully ripened, and you experience that in the same way, once you achieve fully enlightenment, then, it's a compassion that allow the fully enlightened, the Buddhas, to work for the benefit of all sentient beings, and for all sentient beings to experience the fruit of that enlightenment. If it wasn't for the compassion, then like some of the arhat, because they don't have same level of compassion like the Buddha has, and so therefore, when they achieve their enlightenment, and because there's no suffering and there's so much bliss, they can be bliss out in that state for eons, But the bodhisattvas, the Buddhas, when they achieve enlightenment, they work even more harder, even better, even more than before, for all sentient beings, day and night. And it is that great compassion, and through that they help and benefit sentient beings, guiding and leading and showing the path according to the needs of those different individuals, and it is due to that compassion. So therefore, compassion is so crucial and important at the beginning, the middle, at the end, and therefore, and is the root cause of the bodhisattva mind as well. And so therefore, paying homage to the compassion. And so then next it says, the essence of this nectar of secret instructions is transmitted from the master, from Sumantara. I think it seems there are slightly different versions, not the versions, I think, in terms of those, in some versions, this one come at the end. Here, Pabonga Rinpoche, he brought he changed the sequence a little bit, so anyway, here you can say it is, it explains, how this instruction, where these instructions or the teachings come from, So generally speaking, they are kind of mainly 3 lineage, the method lineage, the wisdom lineage, and practice lineage, all coming from Buddha Shakyamuni and passed through, in terms of the method lineage, passing from Maitreya to Asanga and so forth, and the wisdom lineage from Manjushri to um, um, Nagarjuna and so forth, Aryadeva and so forth, and then Nyamlen, the practice lineage from Basudara and so forth, and so then all these three lineage, passing through them, and then received by the Adisha Vibhamkara, one we can say the founder of the Kadamba traditions around end of 10th centuries, 11th centuries, and especially, so he received all those lineage, all those different lineage, and especially this Lojongs or mind training lineage, the instruction and practice he received from mainly three teachers, mainly from three teachers. There is one teacher who is called, Dhammarashita, and his compassion, loving kindness, compassion, bodhisattva is so strong, who is able to even cut his flesh and give to others, So because of incredible compassion, who have no, resistance or no hesitations when it is required, and even to be able to cut his flesh in order to such is his incredible and also is and then there was another teacher, Chamben also in Tibetan, and is the yogi of the loving kindness or material, and also he has, due to his incredible loving kindness and compassion and bodhicitta mind, through that, then he was able to also realize the emptiness and have the wisdom, as well as to be able to, through the practice of Tonglen, taking and giving, to be able to take other suffering, and then Lama Sedlingpa, and that is the main among three of them. Then he received that mainly from this Lama Sedlingpa, from this called the master from Sumatra. I think now it is in Indonesia. So these teachers, Lama Atisha Digambara, he received most teaching, most of the instructions from these teachers, and it is said, he went to receive those teachings to now Indonesia, in the boat for 13 months. So it is in around 11th century. So you can see those boats will. It can be very dangerous, in those seas when that kind of the quality of the boat at those times. But still, he took so much hardship to receive those teachings, those instructions, those lineage. Even though he was already great masters, teachers in India, but he heard about these masters and his incredible loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta. He was so inspired, so he took the journey to go there, and for 13 months by boat. And then he studied there with him under 12 years and received all the teachings, all the oral teachings, instructions, transmissions. And it is said then he brought those teachings back to India, kind of revive. For some time, those teachings was kind of being declined or lost to certain degrees. So then he kind of revived again those teachings. And he was the head of the biggest university monastery of Nalanda. There's Bigam Shila, and he was the head of that. And from there, he was invited to come to India, to Tibet. Of course, without going, you can read his biography if you want to, his story at the beginning of the remembrance, more detail. And then he went to Tibet, and he taught there, for 17 years. In some, they say 20, some they say 70 years, but whatever. And he passed away. And then, so the Kadamba tradition, the Lojong in Tibet started from him, Adisha. And that is where Kadamba, the so-called Kadamba tradition started with him. And then from him, his main disciples, Domtempa, and through that, then all the Kadamba masters, the Tibetan Kadamba masters. So that is what this says. It's transmitted from the master from the Sumitra, from Lama Selingpa to Atisha, and from Atisha to Domtempa and all his other masters until, so this coming where this teaching comes from, basically. And the essence of this nectar of secret instructions, and it is called secret instructions. It is said at the very beginning, those teachings was given more kind of secretly, orally, and secretly to only few disciples who already have good foundations of the practice. It wasn't given easily to any public or to anyone. But those teaching was given mainly for those more disciples who had already have a good foundations of the practice of the foundational practices, such as the practice of small and middle scope. So it wasn't even some of those instructions or not even written. It was passed, transmitted, and passed orally, in that way. So in a way that was, and also in some it says it is secretly, because some of the practice here, such as the taking and the giving, Tonglen, the practice for Tonglen, which is the main kind of core practice of this, and then other practice coming from that, expanding from that. And because for some people, for certain individuals, they might be too overwhelmed by that practice, because that practice is practicing, training your mind and practice to take on others' sufferings, others' pain, others' challenges, and the cause of all those suffering and challenges, all their negativities, and giving all your goodness, all your, as it will come later, all your goodness, all your virtues, all your excellent qualities, everything that you have, giving that, so that is not easy practice. And for some people, it can be at the very beginning can be overwhelmed, and so therefore again, it's a practice keep more kind of secret and giving to those who have more courage, and who will be not overwhelmed by such practice, who are more courageous and who are more confident and who will not be so overwhelmed by that. So therefore, again, in a way, it is in that way that why it's called secret, because sometimes some individuals who are not so ready for those teaching and those practice, they might be a little bit overwhelmed by that, and so the essence of this nectar, and this teaching is like a nectar, those teachings are like the nectar that heals, that heal all our emotional, mental pain, sufferings, all the negative emotions, all the destructive emotion, and especially the very root of those negative emotions, the self-cherishing thought, or selfishness, the attitude of selfishness and self-grasping. So in a way, that is this teaching is a nectar, and it is the essence, because the whole essence of all the Buddha teachings, the essence of Buddha teaching, it comes to the wisdom and compassion, or in other way, two bodhicittas, the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. All the Buddha's teachings, the very heart of all the Buddha's teachings, the essence of all the Buddha teachings is cultivate that wisdom and the bodhicitta mind that is based on, rooted in loving kindness and compassion. And so the Lojongs focus on those practice. And so therefore, these teachings, or those instructions and this practice are the very heart of all the Buddha's practice. It's the very heart and essence of all the Buddha's teaching. It's the core, the main and core of all the Buddha's teachings. So I think, okay, we will have a short 10 minutes break, and then again, if you have a question, you can unmute, you can ask, or you can send a text, okay, on the chatting, okay. So in relation to the story of the author, I wanted to kind of explain a little bit, I think, how he came in contact with these instructions and teachings, Geshe Chekawa, the author who composed this 7 point of the mind training, it is said, it was explained that one time he heard someone reciting a verse where it says, some, I don't know exact English translations, but it's from one of the 8 verses of mind training where it he heard this verse someone reciting. someone out of jealousy, if they criticize me and mistreat me, may I offer the victory to others and may I take the loss on myself. So he heard that verse, Geshe Chekawa, someone reciting, and he was very curious and very, never heard something like that before. Because of course, normally we always think, take the victory to ourselves and give the loss to others, blame the others. And when he heard, that's just opposite, it's so radical, so opposite of that, so opposite of the way we think, the way we feel. He was so curious and he said, where does that come from? What practice, what prayer, what teaching that is, and what is that? And then of course someone explained, this is the verse from 8 verses of mind training. And so he was very, very interested and curious to study and learn more about this. And so he asked, who is the author? And of course, he found out Geshe Langritamba was the author of 8 verses of mind training. And it is said, yeah. And so he found out the author, Geshe Langritamba, so he knew that. So then he wanted to go and study with him, but by that time he heard Geshe Langritamba has already passed away. He's no more. And then he asked who has that kind of instructions and the teaching still. And then someone said Geshe Chekawa, another Kadama master, and he will be the master if you're interested, that you can study and learn from him. So he went to see Geshe Chekawa, and it said it happened. Geshe Chekawa was teaching one particular that day, and it was the teaching was not on mind training. It was more on fundamental teachings, the foundational teachings. So he was a little bit disappointed. He was listening to the teaching, and those teaching was more kind of the fundamental teachings, and not on the Bodhisattva's teachings, and not on Lojong's. And he was a little disappointed. But then after the class, he went to see him and ask him some questions and about this practice, and then of course Chekawa explained and all of that, and under him then he studied, and not only he studied, he practiced. I mean, having practiced that, it helped him a lot in his life. He said whenever, whenever he has fear, whenever he has all those different conceptual thoughts, and he started to reflect on one of those verses, and his mind started to become calm, peaceful. Whenever he finds his mind is kind of, boiling with all these negative feelings, such as rages, anger, fear, different feelings, when he reflects, contemplate, recite and contemplate on one of those verses, he said he found so soothing, so cooling, peaceful. And that is his experience. Not only his studies, but he started to, whatever he study, he tried to put into practice. He tried to implement them. He tried to integrate them. And having done that, then he can see changes in his mind, the transformation in his mind, transformation his response, emotional response, reactions. And then he also taught some others, over the time, some others. And then he found, some of those unruly, his friends, brother friends, others. Also, he found being very beneficial to them too, And in Tibetan peoples, in the old times, they are known for a very kind of hard people, very, very kind of, they have this kind of warrior type, of people, and very harsh. And so, it's those Lojong's teachings that make them more soft. It's over the years and centuries, those Lojong teachings have started to make them more soft from being very hard. So in even those times, of course, and so, Geshe Chekawa, as he again teach, and as some people started to practice, implement, that he began to see the transformation and then becoming more soft, And then also at that time, there was a lot of leprosy spread in Tibet. And he gave those teachings, and some of the people started to practice, especially the Tonglen practice, And then it says, some people recover from the leprosy through those practices. And at one time, those practices becoming known as the practice for the leprosy is the disease. So people who have leprosy, I don't know what you call lepro, I don't know what you call it, but it's a practice of that. It became so known like that because of that. So then he felt, such a powerful practice and teaching. If I don't write it, then if it get lost, it will be such a great loss. So with that, then it is said that he started writing. Before that, it was, until Geshe Langri came with the 8 verses, it was not in written, those Lojongs, so-called, and then it was more passed, transmitted orally. And then Geshe Langri wrote the 8 verses, and then Geshe Chekawa wrote the 7 point of mind training based on the 8 verses of the mind training. And because he felt it would be such a great loss if those instruction was not written, and if they get lost, And so that is a little bit of kind of which came into my mind as we were going. And then next verse is revealing the features of the doctrine to endanger respect to the instruction. So in order to have a, more respect for the teaching, the instructions, then here is going to give some feature of that. You should understand the significance of these instructions is like a diamond, the sun, and medicine tree. So it is saying, I don't know, in some of the Tibetan version that I see, I don't see this particular one verses, but or first two lines. So, and of course, it is like a medicine tree that can cure the disease, and here curing the disease of our emotional sickness, of the delusions, the afflicted emotions, And diamond, I don't know, because I didn't see any commentaries. And sun can be like, it's the sun dispel the darkness. In the same way, those teachings dispel the darkness of the ignorance. And then those teachings are like a diamond. Maybe it could be said like this in, again, I don't know in this commentary particularly with this, but in others, there is, in some other teachings, it explains, the bodhicitta mind, loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind, is like a diamond, which overwhelm any other kind of precious metals, and it gives examples of how bodhisattvas overwhelm the arhat through their bodhicitta mind, because even though the arhat, even they might have many more wisdom, realization of emptiness, direct realization, even though they have overcome all the delusions and all of that, but the bodhisattvas, even a bodhisattva who have bodhicitta mind, but who might not have a realization of emptiness, still that overwhelm or overpower that arhat through the that mind, so therefore bodhicitta mind is giving us a it's a, even the broken diamond, even though it is in the pieces, that can be more value and more than others such as gold, metals, other gold or silver or other kind of stones, and so therefore again this teaching and practice is like a diamond, even just one part of this practice, even if we can apply, even we cannot apply everything that is taught here, even if we can apply and integrate even just one part of these teachings, one part of that teachings, it can be incredibly powerful, beneficial in transforming ourselves and being great benefit to others as well. This time of the 5 generations will then be transformed into the path to the fully awakened state. So, difficult time, in terms of time, degenerate time, difficult sentient beings, in some times the sentient beings are less difficult, degeneration time, the sentient beings are more difficult, it's a difficult time wise, sentient beings wise, in terms of delusions, more delusions, stronger delusions, in a certain time there's less delusions, in certain time there's more delusion, in degeneration time sentient beings are more stronger and more delusions, more obstacle to your life, to have more obstacle to have a short life, so in terms of the life, and then view, difficult views, not right views, so in such time, in such degeneration time, there's more obstacles, more challenges, more difficulties, and when there is more challenges, more difficulties, more problems, if we don't know how to deal with that, then we suffer more. We suffer more. We experience more pain, more stronger pain, more sufferings, and due to that, then, being overwhelmed by those pain and suffering and challenges, then it becomes more challenging to practice the Dharma. It becomes more challenging to practice the Dharma because our mind gets so overwhelmed and distracted by all these challenge, problems, suffering, and we cannot focus so much on the Dharma. We cannot so focus on our practice because we are too much distracted and overwhelmed by all these kind of challenges and problems, difficulties, you know. So here, the practice in the Lojong mind training that is going to explain is how to transform all this in such difficult time in relation to difficult peoples, especially in relation to people who have very strong delusions, which are driven by a very strong, views, extreme views, the delusions, which are strong delusion, which are being influenced by very strong extreme views. When we're in relation to that, when we come in contact with all of that kind of challenging situation and people's sentient beings, how can we transform all of that into the path? How can, instead of being, overwhelmed by such situations, such individuals, and then allowing more negative emotion to arise, frustration, anger, hatred, how can we transform those situations, those difficult things, difficult situations, into something virtuous, something meaningful, something positive, something by transforming into the path, by transforming into the path that leads to our enlightenment, transforming something into the path that bring more loving kindness, compassion to others and oneself. Instead of getting angry and upset, how can we transform it to cultivate love and compassion to those difficult peoples and sentient beings? So that is what here is saying. These instructions, the teachings, is about transforming all situations, and particularly difficult situations. So instead of seeing it as a problem, transforming it by seeing it something in, positive opportunity, transforming something virtuous. And so this whole practice, whole teachings is on how to do that, how to transform that, so I think we always get kind of distracted from practicing the Dharma, Either way, when we are overwhelmed by suffering problems, we cannot think properly. Our mind is too occupied with the problem, the sufferings, and then we get distracted and we cannot practice much. When things are going so well, again, we get too excited, and again, we become too distracted again. Again, we cannot find time to practice. Again, either way, either things goes bad or either things go well, very well. In both ways, at the moment, it distracts us. It distracts our mind. And thereby we struggle to direct our mind towards our practice. We struggle to find the energy, time, and focus and direct towards our practice, towards our Dharma practice. That can have a positive, will have a positive impact to ourselves and to people around us, sentient beings around us, and now and in the futures, you know, and so here, you know, that is the practice about that. So then the practice is about, you know, so then as it mentioned at the very beginning, as I mentioned, the main practice here is, you know, cultivating the two bodhicitta mind, conventional bodhicitta mind and ultimate bodhicitta mind. Okay. And maybe first, maybe I might have to kind of conventional bodhicitta mind is, you know, the wish to achieve fully enlightened or fully awakened state for the benefit of all sentient beings. That wish or inspirations to achieve that enlightenment, driven by the great compassion and loving kindness, you know, driven by that great compassion, loving kindness for the benefit of all sentient beings, the wish to achieve that fully enlightened, fully awakened state of the bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta mind. Of course, you know, at the very beginning, when we train, it requires a lot of effort to have that kind of mind, that kind of attitude, you know, state of mind. It doesn't come naturally for most of us who have not trained before. But as we train and practice more and more, then it becomes more and more easier, less and less, require less and less effort. And then we reach a point where you can have that bodhicitta mind effortlessly, spontaneously, naturally, day and night, without any effort. And that is when we have that is when someone have realization of the bodhicitta mind. And so that is the conventional bodhicitta mind. The ultimate bodhicitta mind, ultimate or absolute bodhicitta mind, is the wisdom realizing the emptiness directly that has been supported by that conventional bodhicitta mind. And that is ultimate bodhicitta. You know, for example, Arhat had the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, but that wisdom realizing emptiness directly, we wouldn't call it, it is not a ultimate bodhicitta, because that is not supported by the conventional bodhicitta, because they don't have conventional bodhicitta mind. And so therefore, the wisdom that realizes emptiness directly, that has been supported by the conventional bodhicitta mind, is the ultimate bodhicitta, when we become more precise, you know. Otherwise, we can say the wisdom realizing emptiness, you know, supported by bodhicitta mind. Maybe we could say that as ultimate bodhicitta, you know. So here it talks about how to meditate, how to contemplate, how to practice the two bodhicitta mind, conventional bodhicitta mind and ultimate bodhicitta mind. Okay. And so that, and within that practice is broken into 7 points, you know, and so that is why it's 7 points. So as you can see, you know, yeah. So it is, and before we actually engage into that training in the two bodhicitta mind, then one go through the preliminary practices. And within the preliminary practices, here, it's two type of preliminary practice: common preliminary practice and uncommon preliminary practice. Within the preliminary practices, within the common practice, then there is a the preliminary practice of this instruction, this teaching, and preliminary practice of the sessions when we engage in a meditation or practice, the preliminary practice in the sessions. And so I think we will explain that more. And so that is where it starts, explaining the preliminaries as a basis for the practice. So, and then it starts the root text. It starts the first training in the preliminaries. So that is what it says, First, we have to train the preliminaries. And that is the foundational practice. The more stronger foundational practice you have, when you actually engage in the actual practice, that practice becomes more effective because you have better foundations. If you don't have good foundations, then even the practice is very powerful, and it might not be as powerful, as effective to us. And it is not because the practice itself is not powerful or effective, but the problem is because we don't have the good basic, the foundations. And that is same with everything, isn't it? If you don't have a good foundation schooling, when you go to college, high school, college, or university, you will struggle more. But if you have a good foundation in schooling, if you have good foundation, then it will be easy when you go to college and university. Same way, the foundations is very important. Sometimes we kind of ignore or doesn't pay so much attention to those basic and foundation practice, and we rush to jump into the actual practice because we think that is the main practice, because that is more powerful and effective. But for that practice to become a more effective, more powerful, more beneficial, the good foundations is important. Good basic and foundation important, and that is the way the preliminaries comes. So here, because this practice is, the Bodhisattva's practice, okay? It's about cultivating the two bodhicitta mind. And so therefore it's Bodhisattva practice. In order to the Bodhisattva practice to become effective, we need to have the foundational or preliminary practice of the middle scope and small scope. Like in Lamrim, in Lamrim teachings, that is why they start with middle scope and then progress to start with a small scope practice, and then it progresses to the middle scope practice, and then the main practice, the great scope practice, that is the Bodhisattva's practices. And the reason why the stronger, the better foundational basic practice you have, the more effective and powerful the next stage of practice become. So in many of the commentaries, it is explained the four preliminaries, in a short, if you go in more detail, then all the practice that is explained in the small scope and middle scope, they all are part of the preliminary practices. But when it is kind of explained in the fourth point of view, then it's a present human rebirth, death impermanent, and karma, you know, law of cause and effect, the karma, and then meditating on the fall or disadvantage of the samsara. So those four are the more preliminary practices here in relation to the practice and the instructions. And then in terms of the preliminary practice within the sessions, you know, then, you know, you can visualize merit field, refuge and merit field as one, you know. So of course there are many different ways of visualizing, but you can just visualize, you know, you can also visualize extensive or very simple way of, like, for example, Buddha Shakyamuni, you know, and thinking that Buddha Shakyamuni, who is inseparable from the gurus, who is inseparable from all the other Buddhas, you know, and then going for the refuge and bodhisattvas, you know, and then doing the four immeasurable practices, and then, you know, doing the 7 limb practices, and then you can do the mandala, you know. You know, it can be short, long, long, short, you know, whether it's 7 limb practice, whether it's the mandala, you can do it long, short, you know, but, and then you can recite some mantra for that Buddha. And then you can, while you are doing that, you can visualize cleansing and beautiful. You make a strong request to inspire us, to guide us, to bless us, to clear all the obstacles, to clear all the obstacles to develop the true bodhisattva mind, to bless us to develop all the conditions, favorable conditions to develop those two realizations, and to clear all the obstacles, external, internal, secret obstacles. So we make a strong request that couple of times, you know, you know, you can do 1 time, 3 times, 7 times. Please bless me to clear all the obstacles, to gather all the conducive conditions, and to clear all the negativities, all the obscurations, and to have all the conducive condition, and to clear all the obstacles. And so we do that, and then you recite the mantra, and while you're cleansing all the negativity, all the obstacles, you can visualize being cleansed, and then receiving all the favorable conditions and all the realizations, and especially the realization to bodhisattva mind. And so that we start with that. And then after that, then you actually go in the main meditation, whatever your meditation. For example, the practice of Tonglen, you know, taking and giving, you can do that meditation. Or you can do loving kindness, meditation on loving kindness, or you can do meditation on compassions, or other meditation on emptiness, or conventional bodhicitta, whatever different meditation that, any of those meditation that we might be doing, you know, then we actually start the main meditation. But preliminary, before that, at the very beginning of the sessions, the preliminary, we start with that. It's important part of the practice. So that when we actually engage in the main form of the practice, so there is better result, So I think with that, maybe I will kind of stop here today. Any questions? If no one has question, then I think I will kind of explain a little bit about the Sakadawa. And I know, again, I know in this Sakadawa is the month of, and depends, Sakadawa means, the month of Saka, Dawa means month, Saka, and it's a name of one of the planet, or yeah. So the month giving the name of that. But what it means is it is the month where the Buddha taught, did the first turning of the wheel of the Dharma after his enlightenment. Shogotuje. No, it is not that one. Tupatseshi, Sakadao Sore, that is Tupatseshi. That is in the 6 months of Tibetan. So this Sakadawa is 4th month of the Tibetan calendar. So this month is regarded a very holy month. Because it is the month that Buddha was born, and Buddha achieved enlightenment, and the month that Buddha passed away. So of course it's a different years, but the same month and same day, the full moon. So so this whole month is regarded very holy, but especially the full moon. I think is it on a Friday, did you say? I think, yeah. Yeah, so it is on Friday, this coming Friday. So it is said, because of this, 3 important deeds of the Buddhas in the same month and same day. Of course, it's different years, but so it is very special month and special day. Very holy, special month and special day. And so if we engage in the virtues, it increase and multiply by many more because of that special month and the day. And so therefore, of course, Dharma that we have to practice every day, is not just once a week or once a month, but Dharma practice means integrating in our every day. Practice should be integrated every day. But still, in those special days, if we do a little bit more extra practice, we have nothing to lose but to gain. And just like in everything, we want to have as much profit as possible. When you get in the business, you like to invest where you can get the most maximum benefit or profit. And so this is the opportunity to gain most benefit and most profit from our virtuous practice. And so if we can do some extra practices, in whatever practices, in those during this month, whether you are studying more, Dharma studying more, whether you are meditating more, whether you are doing more prayers, whether you are doing more extra generosity, or whether you are doing more extra offerings, or being more paying more attention, more mindful, being more compassionate, more kind, definitely it will be great benefit. And again, if you want to listen and read more about incredible benefit of that, you can go to FMG website and you can see Lama Sopa Rinpoche's teachings on that, you know. So among the Tibetan communities, and not only Tibetan community, also like in you know, others, be in India, Nepal, you know, Mongolia and all other places where it follow the Tibetan Buddhism, you know, they all during this month, you know, they will everyone, monks, nuns, lay people, they try to do extra virtues, extra practice as much as possible, you know. Even people who are non-veg, normally they try to become a veg during 1 month, you know, and they try to do the practice much more than normal, you know, during those 1 month, especially this coming Friday, that month, the full moon day. So I think we have some program, you know, in the morning we have precept, you know, and then I think there's recitations of the Golden Light Sutra during the daytime. In the evening we have a the Shakyamuni's practice or the pujas, you know, and so you can join all of them, or you can join one of them, whatever you feel it. And so, yeah, so we hope to see you in one of those, any of those programs or any of those different sessions, practice. So, yeah, I think I would say that is all. Yeah, and then as I say, you know, this morning we'll do a 8 Mahayana precepts, and I think you probably all know, you know, what 8 Mahayana precepts is. A precept for 24 hours. We start in the morning. We're trying to start at 5:20 before sunrise. Then probably we might finish that. It might take half hour to 45 minutes, and it's a precept until tomorrow sunrises, you know, tomorrow morning, before until sunrises. And basically, you know, is precept for not killing, not stealing, not getting sex for one, and not lying, you know, and not playing kind of entertainment like musics, you know, and no kind of ornaments or makeups and like that, and because it is a distractions and it is also increase our attachment and so forth. And then not eating black food, and not eating after the lunch, you know. So the black foods is, you know, not having meat or eggs or garlic, onion, you know, those in the food, you know. And then not sitting or sleeping on very high bed, you know. So these are again, so these are the eight kind of precepts. So if anyone is, those who have taken, you know, if you can join us, please join us. Or if you want to do by yourself, please do yourself. So since you don't have to come, maybe you might be able to join through that. And so yeah, I think that is about the 8 Mahayana precepts, you know. So we will be doing that 8 Mahayana precept in the morning. Yeah. So any questions, please And feel free, or anything to share, any if you want any comments, feel free to do that. And again, of course, okay, so the homework, I think for today's, I don't know if you can find during this week, you can read about the 4 preliminary that we just described, about the precious human rebirth, impermanent, karma, and samsara. You can try to read more on that. You can try to reflect, contemplate on that more. That will be kind of part of the kind of homework that you can do. Even though I might again kind of touch on that next week a little bit, but you can, because I wouldn't be spending so much session on each of them, so it will be good that you can read, and of course you can read the Lamrim if you go more detail on that. If not, then others, other books that cover those subjects. So yeah, I think that is okay. So thank you very much. We don't, then we do the dedications. Okay. So, due to the merit of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception. May the supreme joy Bodhisattva that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. May all beings everywhere plagued by the suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy. By the virtues of my merit, may no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drink. May the poor find wealth, and those who in sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvest. May all medicine be effective, and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from all ailments, and whatever disease they are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other for as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Okay, is that so? So the wish granting jewel, fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparable kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who have uphold the supreme moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjuna victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayer, honored until Jews, Savior of myself and others, your disciple, please live long. So thank you very much. One of the other homework is whether you are watching a news or whether you are reading a news, I think, of course, it will be less if we watch less. We want to keep updated and be aware what is going on, but also not spend too much time all the time. It can, we can be just wasting so much time, and our emotion get involved there while we are watching, and but of course, even you want to watch or read, and always being mindful and watching your mind, how your mind feel and responds, and trying to watch and trying to take care of your mind and emotion. Very important, very important. Always be aware, mindful of that, pay more attention to that. Yeah. Yeah, even as I mentioned at the very beginning, when I saw the video of how the police kneel on that person's leg even when he's begging, I can't breathe, and how that your emotion gets kind of if you don't watch it, I can see my the sense of frustration or even certain level of anger arising, and so again, being aware and noticing that, and then seeing no benefit of that, and then trying to see maybe the person's, even though it's a horrible act, and maybe he doesn't, maybe he doesn't have the intention to kill, and so just trying to see something that, so I can feel for not only for the person who died and their family, but also feel for the police who took the life, feeling maybe, of course, the way he treated is brutal and unkind and uncompassionate, unconcerned, and that. But at the same time, maybe he didn't know that he had no intention of killing it, but someone's life went there, and because of that, now his life is kind of, not only he lose his job, most likely he will be in jail. I saw his wife was going to divorce him, and now a lot of his families, his friends, he's going to lose them, people's, and what kind of, even when he's released from prison, how much emotionally he will be facing from the rest of the society. Everyone knows him, everyone has judgmental thoughts, and so in a way that the suffering that he's going through now, which he will be going through in the children. So just to direct your mind on that, and then you started to feel, instead of anger, you started to feel maybe compassion for that person as well, and I think that is the thing. I think is always when we have certain situation like that, watching our mind and being aware, and then when we are in those kind of negative emotions, we try to change and change by looking in differently, and focusing on differently, and seeing something else, then not to have that anger. And at least for me, definitely my mind was a little bit disturbed when I first saw that. When you don't see the image, it doesn't disturb as much. But when I saw that video, that really, that kind of disturbed my mind, definitely a little bit, and then I noticed that, and then I have to direct my mind in different direction by thinking differently. And when I begin to think of the police officer, what he's going through and that he would be going through, then I can feel compassion for him, not for his actions, but that's the pain, the suffering that he will be going through. Not to talk about the negative karma and consequences in the future, but even immediately, it's like someone's life has been ruined. His life has been ruined. In so many different ways. Because of that act. That foolish act, uncompassionate act. So anyway, so that will be another homework. And it's important homework that, especially in those difficult times, now so much unrest, that could bring so many different feelings, different emotions, all kind of feelings, all kind of emotion, all kind of thought, and paying attention to that is very important, and trying to work with that. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.